Correspondent, as the war in Ukraine is now in its 1,331st day. The fact is, in spite of stepping up its aggression, Russia has not taken any major town in the Donbas in 2025. Pokrovsk, Kostiantynivka and Drushkivka are now dangerous no-go zones. Attacks by first-person view or FPV drones are more and more frequent. Even Sloviansk and Kramatorsk further north have been hit. Sloviansk is where the Donbas war started, when it was briefly occupied by Russian-backed forces back in 2014. Gulliver Cragg is our correspondent. He filmed a report there last year. He's revisited Sloviansk to find one of the central voices in that report. The activist Denis Behunov has now joined up with the Ukrainian army.
There is a growing sense of danger in the Donbass's remaining Ukrainian-held cities. More and more, the authorities in frontline areas are building these net canopies over main roads to protect against FPV drones that are as light as they are lethal. Elsewhere, there are just warning signs. Most military vehicles you see around here have got jamming devices on their roofs.
Drones have started to hit the territory of Sloviansk, and more people are thinking about evacuating.
Denis Behunov is not leaving. We met him last year as a civilian activist. Now he's joined the army, studying the rule books before weapons training starts.
I've enlisted not because I've got any great desire to serve in the army, but simply because it's necessary. There's no other way, or there won't be any civilian life.
Denis is also learning the job of military press officer, creating content for his brigade's social media.
I hoped that the war would somehow end without my help, so to speak, but events have shown that this war is not ending.
Russian forces are unlikely to enter Sloviansk anytime soon, but the city bears ever more scars from their rocket, glide bomb and drone attacks.
That
was from the shockwave from a strike. They hit a tower block over there, and the shockwave smashed quite a few windows in the area.
Yet the Sloviansk Dream Community Centre is still open, offering a range of activities for adults and children who otherwise have school only online.
In 2022, it wasn't like this, with these swarms of drones. It's a different kind of war today. So everyone thinks in their own way about whether to stay or to leave. But you meet a lot of people who say, sure, I went away somewhere, but ran out of money and came back. Leaving is expensive.
Whilst here, people have jobs, and with the community centre, a sense of solidarity and even dynamism. It's expanding, with a new music department for local teens.
Gulliver Cragg, our correspondent, is joining us now live from Kharkiv. Gulliver, good evening to you. Starting in Kharkiv, what is the latest you can tell us from there?
Well, I arrived this morning and the attack on those gas production facilities was still ongoing. I heard a few explosions in the distance and saw a plume of smoke that I was told was a diesel producing plant. It wasn't only the gas facilities, but other parts of Ukraine's energy infrastructure. The sirens have just gone off again. So maybe there's another attack on the region that is about to start. I haven't heard any explosions though. And in fact, people here say that the air alerts are more often on than off in this part of Ukraine. But still, you know, this is still an extraordinarily vibrant city. Life goes on. In the afternoon, there was a Russian drone that landed near an apartment block. We went to see what had happened, and miraculously, it hadn't exploded. So those kinds of things happen on a daily basis as well. That's kind of life in Kharkiv, which is also punctuated by funerals. So I went to the cemetery today, and it's just a sea of graves with the Ukrainian flag fluttering above them. That means they're military graves. At the moment when we arrived, not one but two funerals were ongoing.
It is incredibly sad, as you point out, Gulliver, and I think as well a real testimony to the strength of the Ukrainian resolve that they carry on and keep this sense of wanting to go towards keeping their country. And they obviously will be hoping for more support coming out of the conversations that are going to be coming up over the next 24 hours, particularly Trump with Zelensky, rather. Trump, though, been speaking to Putin today. I know you weren't there. I know you don't have a crystal ball, but can you give us any insight into what they may be discussing and what, of course, Ukraine might be hoping for?
I mean, it's really beyond me to understand how come it takes them 2.5 hours to decide to meet in Budapest. But there are clearly things that they're talking about that they're not talking about publicly. From the Ukrainian side, though, I think that they're feeling that this conversation has happened, but Zelensky's got his big chance to talk to Trump in person in Washington, and he's been doing well with his meetings with Trump lately. The disastrous one in February was followed by several very successful for Ukraine meetings, and Zelensky will be hoping to repeat the exploit, and also hoping that Trump is going to see that it's in his and the United States' interest to put pressure on Putin and try to make some progress towards ending this war. I think that there is also a risk, though, for Ukraine if Vladimir Putin accepts some kind of ceasefire that isn't a proper settlement, that doesn't mean that he's giving up on his ambitions in Ukraine, because he may well try to pursue those ambitions by other means, meddling in Ukrainian politics if Ukraine holds elections, or just starting up the conflict again after a few months during which he will have had time to stock up on those drones, and the Ukrainians presumably will not have been allowed to continue their long-range strikes into Russian territory.
The issue of Tomahawk missiles, Gulliver, again, one of those things perhaps we can imagine that Trump and Zelensky might be discussing.
Well, it's become a cliche in Ukraine to say that no weapon is a game changer. Over the course of this war, the Ukrainians have asked, almost sort of begged for certain things. The F-16 planes are one example. Before that, it was tanks. And then they got them, and they didn't absolutely turn the tables. Each thing makes a small contribution. The contribution I think that the Tomahawks would make in concrete terms is that they might be able to really take out some of Russia's drone production and storage facilities deep inside Russia, which I think the Ukrainian drone strikes, they're not really strong enough to do that. The Ukrainians are developing their own long-range cruise missiles that they're going to try to do that with, though, but I think they're not as powerful as the Tomahawks. But I think maybe there's a lot of focus on the Tomahawks when really Volodymyr Zelensky is going to be talking to Donald Trump about a whole range of different issues, not just weapons supplies, not just financial support, but also what is going to be Donald Trump's position diplomatically in the international arena going forward, and what is going to be his position when he meets with Vladimir Putin in Budapest if this planned summit does go ahead.
Gulliver, so many more questions, but sadly we're out of time. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Gulliver Cragg, our correspondent in Ukraine, joining us live from Kharkiv. He's watching all developments for us, of course, as he's been doing all along. Next.